Welcome to the Creation Evaluation Station. Today we have a special Christmas evaluation, as this is a present I got for Christmas from some family members. So, what is it, you ask? Well, here it is. That's the front. This is essentially the back. And it also has another side here with some information about the T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus. Yep, it is a mini building block set. I figured I'd do this. I've never actually put mini building block sets together for one reason, and that's, although they look really kind of nice, detailed, this guy definitely does, I've never really put them together because, well, they don't look like they really have much in the way of design. It pretty much looks like somebody has taken a bitmap image, or taken an image and put it into bits and turned those bits into little bricks, and that's how they're created. Not saying they won't be fun to put together, and we're going to check it out and test it out. Now, this is obviously a museum type item. It is even what it was. It's for the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, is where it came from. But it's from the Impact Company, and they make other types of mini building block sets. Quite a few, actually. I'll have a link to the website, or the museum actually has a website for their museum store, and you can purchase these there. They retail for $13.99, and they also have 3 other types of models. They have a mammoth, a stegosaurus, and a triceratops. Triceratops is my favorite, and I'm half tempted to pick up one of those. He looks pretty nice. This guy looks pretty nice too, at least from the box. We'll see more, obviously, when we get it put together. They for ages 7 and up, and this particular one has 389 pieces. I don't know if they all do. I mean, come in a pretty similar sized box, but that doesn't mean the same pieces. Let's see, anything else? That's that. So, yeah, this is a special Christmas edition. I know it's quite a bit late, but I was busy with other projects, so I couldn't even really sit down and enjoy this. But we'll check it out and see how it adds up, and yeah, let's get to it. This is what you get inside the box. Instructions, a base plate, and a bag full of lots of little tiny bricks. Now, I'm probably not going to do a whole parts rundown of all the little parts, but just looking at this base, you can see it. See this is the underside of it. This is the top side. Just all little tiny studs. But you can see underneath here, there's some kind of grid work, and that actually, even though this is very, very thin, as you can see, gives quite a bit of rigidity to it. So there's some nice design, at least in these parts. There's some quality here, is what I'm trying to say. But that's about it for showing parts as well. But there you go. There's instruction booklet, lots of little pieces. Get in close. There. There's a comparison with my finger. That's how small they are. But well, this will be fun. Here we go. Alright, here we go. Finally have something small enough I can use my turntable on. Yeah, so he looks pretty good. It is well appearance anyways. He can come off the base, although I recommend keeping him on there. Helps with stability and stuff. He's got an open-shut jaw, which I'll pick him off here and show. You can open and close his jaw. It's just a simple hinge down there. But other than that, he doesn't do much except sit there and spin if you have a spin table. But yeah, and the instructions show him to put him, when putting them together, to not use the base to start off with. I would actually say you should start off with that. It would help with stability and holding the pieces together as you move up the legs. Legs were the worst thing that I had problems with the most, which I'll talk more about that in the final discussion, but there he is. Oh, I wanted to show some scale here. I just happen to have the collector's Ninjago figures laying around nearby, so I'm using them as a size comparison. You can see it's actually it's a pretty good sized model, which I was surprised about when you consider the box. Yeah, he's a pretty good sized model. I was very surprised. He's, not exactly to scale with the minifigures, but he's pretty large. After getting it all together, this is what we have left over. There's quite a lot of leftover bits. Was rather surprised. And an interesting note is there was a brick separator. They included their own brick separator, which is nice, and it did come in handy. Could have didn't realize it was even in there at first, mixed in with all the other pieces, but could have come in handy sooner if I had found it, and probably saved me a few exploding parts. But more on that later. Back here at the desk, so before I get into the regular writing, we're gonna discuss some other things with this, since this isn't really a Lego set, though it is building blocks. Basically the quality of the parts. See, I have my Lego videos and I give them pretty good high rating, and that's based off just their standard quality. So we're going to be doing that first before I go into the other part, because you're going to find things are different when it gets to the grading part. A little bit. So the quality of the pieces, are they good? In this case, yes, they are. This brand, the pieces seem to be very well designed. I mean, it's really hard to see by looking at these little pieces, but if you look, which you can't really show here, I think I show it better with the camera, but if you look at the base plate itself, you can see there's some highly structured designed underside to it that's used to increase its strength and durability. So the quality is here. Now, there is problems with some of the pieces, but it's not really because of the quality of the parts. It's more simply due to its size. There are what you normally have in Lego would be a 1x1 stud brick. These are, obviously very small in this. They're small in the Lego, but they're even smaller at this. And for one, even the regular Lego ones, they have a tendency to sway, to rotate, because they're just attached by one stud, and studs are round, and they will rotate. And this will knock things out of alignment with this, which can cause some slight problems with building. But that's not the worst of it. And the worst part, at least with this guy, because the way they did the technique, the claws here on the front, there's built up with a couple bricks and plates, the arm, but then they actually have a single studded plate for the finger, and then there's a claw piece at the end. That single studded plate, like, these are good pieces, they stick in, but because they're so small, it doesn't take much to knock them out. Much force, like just brushing my hand underneath these front arms, the things will fall out. But just sitting there, they're fine. They're strong enough to withstand the force of gravity. What's interesting to note is when they do fall off, the single falls out by the single stud. The actual round stud that's made for the claws, it's also used here in the jaw for the teeth as well. Some reason it sticks better. So it doesn't fall off usually by that point. It falls off by the single stud. And that I'm not sure why. And maybe they were designed to just stick a little bit more because they're more designed as a piece, a fancy piece. They're meant to be standalone. While the little single 1x1 plates are more for construction, while the single rounded studs are more for appearance sake. So they put a little bit more work into the clutch power so they'd stick better. I'm not sure. This is just speculation with that. So let's see. Yeah, the qualities here. There's some problems merely just from the very small size of the bricks. Interesting point is with Lego, one plate is equal to, one brick is the thickness of 3 plates. In this building system, it is one brick is the thickness of only 2 plates. Just something interesting. It doesn't really affect too much. Actually how it's built, like if you try to reproduce a Lego build in these smaller bricks, you would have to take that into consideration. But other than that, there's no real detriment to that. And yes, well-engineered parts, but it has problems with just the small size of it. And this also came in with my problems with this build. And yes, it exploded on me several times. I had a hard time building the legs. They broke down several times on me, and it's not because the parts don't stick together. What I was doing is I was putting a part on and I was just giving it a little pressure, making sure that it, was in securely. And if you can tell how, show a little bit closer how the legs are built. They start the big feet, they go up small and bend at the same time forward, then come back out for the upper leg. And when you press straight down, it puts pressure straight down, and it's not built because of that curve. It wants to crush, and that is what happened several times while I was trying to secure pieces. Those legs would buckle, and boom, kaboom. It was, it was frustrating because I'd have to go back and put it all back together again. This set took me 9 hours to get together. It's only 300 pieces. A Lego set takes a lot less time and a lot less frustration. So, yeah, that may have not been such a problem if I'd just been a little bit more gentler. I'm used to Legos that are a little bit bigger. But it's something to consider when you're building it, is be very careful. Also, it may just simply be the build. Like I said, the T-Rex is only standing on the 2 legs, and the legs are thinner at one point and the other, and the way they design, which they look good but it's a little bit harder. You know, you got to be very delicate putting it together. All the other models in this 4 series, prehistoric B series, have 4 legs: a Stegosaurus, Triceratops, and a Mammoth. All have 4 legs, so they might not have had the same issues that this guy has. And they obviously don't have the same issues with the small claws on the front. Alright, that's the quality of the bricks. There's also problems with the instructions. And probably the biggest problem with the whole thing was with the instructions. I'm not going to talk about it here. I'll move that over into technique section, because that's pretty much where that belongs. So, we're going to move forward with our regular grading. Now, appearance. He looks good. He looks good. You know, he's not perfect. He's not nice and smooth like, the Jurassic Park dinosaurs or whatever from the Lego line, but it's built, brick builds, which is fine. And he still looks good. He's got some nice, even though you've got the studs, there's some nice visual build-up and texturing. He looks very much like a bitmap image, and he does look good, don't get me wrong, despite that. But part of the thing that I don't like about these is exactly that. This feels like it's computer generated. Now, there might have been some other human hands in developing it, like, for instance, this moving jaw. He's got a moving jaw. If you didn't see my previous close-up of it, that was probably put in afterwards and designed by somebody else afterwards. But a good portion of this appears to be just, it looks like a digital bitmap, only in 3D, which makes you think it was designed by a computer, and that may very well have been. But it still looks good, and because of that, appearance-wise, we're going to give it a 7. My only biggest gripe, probably something better could have been done with the eyes. There is some yellow bricks in there, but they're very hard to see. So he's got... It's a bit weird like that. Other than that, I think it's a good representation of a T-Rex. The head shape is maybe a little bit off, but use your imagination, it works. So, functions. Well, there's not much that functions with this. You've got the jaw action, that works fine. But yeah, it just doesn't do much. So, it's not going to get a high rating. I'm going to give it a slightly higher. Like, it gets the job done. It's a statue. It stands there. Pieces don't fall off. Like I said, unless you start playing with it, which we're going to get to that in a little bit. But as far as functioning what it's supposed to do, it does it. It stands there. It doesn't fall apart. The jaw's, opposable fairly well. Works good. So we're going to give it a 6. And there isn't much function to it, but what it does function, it functions well. I like looking at the pictures of the other ones. I don't think there's any moving parts on those whatsoever. So this guy is the exception with his jaw. So he's probably, the other ones probably get, I'd probably give them a 5 if they're, you know, just like this. Now fun, I need to explain a little bit more, because like usually when I'm talking with my Lego sets, I'm talking fun as in, you know, what you do after you put it together. But putting together is also part of the fun. And with Legos, that's just inherent. So they automatically get a higher score. Like I've said before, the Lego sets automatically get a bit of a higher score just because of their overall quality. And that includes the fun of putting them together. This was not fun to put together. As I said, it took me 9 hours. A lot of that was rebuilding after it had broken down. Not all of it. All of it, not all of it. Some of it was just trying to figure out how the parts go together. And this is part of the instructions, which that's going to hurt it here. It's also going to hurt it in the techniques area, because for one, this is a mottled colored critter. He's got green, dark green, and gray, and the instructions pieces are very small. It's hard to see what is what. Like, the instructions just needs to be bigger. That would help. But also, it's very hard to differentiate in the instructions which was green and which was dark green. So the color scheme is probably not perfectly accurate with what's on the box and in the instructions. I got to a point I just didn't care, and I just kind of put them on randomly. Once I realized what was going on, the anal part of me was like, well, it's got to be this, but I got to the point that I was so frustrated with it, I just didn't care. So yeah, the fun, it was not fun to put together. Afterwards, there's not really much you could do with it. It just sits here. It is fun moving the jaw a little bit. So it probably, like I said, is getting a little bit higher score than some of the other models would that don't have anything moving, any moving parts on them. But still, 9 hours. A lot of frustration rebuilding. It's getting a 4. Now on to techniques. Like I said, the instructions were terrible, so many things you take for granted with the Lego sets. Now, I've complained about their instructions being too simple. These are a bit too complicated. There are a lot of pieces with each step that you're supposed to put it together. It's easy enough to figure out, but the biggest problem is it needed more steps. It needed sub-assembly steps. There are several things where things are hard to pull together. It's like, because of the smaller pieces or whatever, you trying to put something on, and you need to stay there while you move on to the next step and get all the pieces, and then you have problems putting the pieces on anyways because the lower section's kind of wonky and everything else. They could use sub-assemblies to build this up, and this was a secure piece that things aren't going to just fall off of. It's going to hold together and then put it on. The biggest example that I can think of with this was the bat. This guy's hollow. It's not obvious. He looks solid, but he's hollow. And, you know, that alone is an interesting design. But the way the instructions had us put it in, when you were closing up the back, 2 big plates This one was here attached to the body. Then there was another one put on top like this. Not directly on top, but like extending off. So it's just like flapping in the breeze up here, except for being held onto here. And then you're supposed to put pricks on top of here that would secure it into place. But the problem is when you try to put them on there, you're just going to push it down into the hole inside. And yeah, I'm like, this is stupid. Why is this doing this? And I kept moving along, and I'm like, why isn't there a subassembly here? You build this part here with this part before you attach it on. You build the two large plates in there, and then you put the cross sections over, and this is your subassembly, and then you place it all on top. And yes, I had no problem when I did that. That should be built-in, designed into the instructions. And that's just one case. There was so much going up the legs and everything else. They were just, oh. And also, it would show the pieces floating above the what you had finished in the last step. And then there were these lines going down, meaning place it here. But it really didn't line up where you were supposed to place it. You had to look ahead to the next model where the pieces had already been placed down and they've been all grayed out, whitished out, basically, and to see how they lined up with the ones below it. Part of that was just trying to do too much in each step, because literally they would show, okay, you put these pieces on here, then you put this other layer on here, then you put this other layer, these would be expanded up here, and you weren't quite sure where these were supposed to be laying on top of the previous layer, which could easily be done in another step. But yeah, the building techniques, like, they weren't terrible. Like I had problems just holding things together, but as you built it up, it would lock into place, and that's why I say they needed sub-assemblies to create a sturdy structure first, and then apply that onto the previous build. A lot more of them. There were some sub-assemblies, like the front arms were a sub-assembly, but they should have done that a lot more and not cram so much in each instructions. I complained about Lego being too simplified, and I put this together. It was crazy. Which I've done more complicated Lego sets. The Lego models in the 80s and 90s were not quite so simple. I think 90s they started simplifying them. Weren't quite so simplified. Like there'd be multiple parts you put on for each step, but it wasn't this complicated. They still went layer by layer. So yeah, as far as techniques getting, it's bombing out at it too. Some of this could actually be taken care of with better instructions, and others of it, yeah, it's instructions. I mean, the overall construction, you finally get a pretty solid build. You said the problems with these pieces here in the front with the small claws, I mean, they're not terrible. This just really isn't meant to be played with too much. It's meant to sit around and look pretty, which it does. But so yeah, let's see, what do we get? Add that all up, divide by 4, we get a 4.75. So it's rounding up to a 5. So its best is probably the bare minimum that Legos would get, a Lego set would get. The worst Lego set. Said some of those numbers probably would be adjusted differently with the the other sets that they have. Now, I'm not giving this a price rating. I'll talk a little bit about it because, let's see, what do you say? They're 389 pieces. Although I wonder how accurate that is. There were so many leftover pieces, but it was 389 pieces and came to $13.99, giving a price of, what did I say? 3 cents? Yeah, 3 cents per piece, which, you know, is way below average standard for Lego. So, is that good? Hard to say, really. These pieces are very, very small. Not sure how, you know, how they're produced. It could even be 3D printed, which is different, you know, than how Legos are formed. How expensive was it to make the parts? They're very small, though, so, you know, a lower price would actually make sense. I mean, Lego's smallest piece is probably twice, maybe almost 4 times the size of the smallest piece here. Is it 3 cents? Yeah, that's about right, I would say. But, you know, looking at a bigger picture here, besides the little piece per count, $13.99, this has ended up being a bigger thing than I thought it was going to be. I'd say $10 would be a decent price, which isn't $13 isn't that expensive, more expensive. And it is a, gotta consider, it's a museum shop piece, which their prices are a little bit higher. They gotta support their museum, the museum. And, you know, I don't mind too much. I do enjoy museums. Love dinosaurs. Love going to see them. That's what my, you know, my in-laws got me this because I do like dinosaurs. So, yeah, overall thoughts, though, the instructions are the worst problems with this. Between the color scheme and trying to figure out small parts, and they show all these parts lumped together, and it's really hard, at least for me, to see where the outline of the parts were. So to figure out how they were supposed to be mapped out, I ended up using a small magnifying glass to figure out what was what. That's also what slowed me down assembling it. I had to take a break before continuing on with this, both to clear my head, gather my thoughts. After 9 hours of putting this together and it breaking multiple times, and yeah, it just was very unnerving. It took way too long. But that's my thoughts on it. That's how I'm grading it. You know, if you like dinosaurs and you have the patience for this, you might have better results than I do. I have good patience, but it was just so frustrating having it break on me. Like, I like a challenge, but now some of this was just me, I'm guessing. If I'd been a little bit more careful putting the pieces together, you know, used to Lego, so they can handle a little bit more stress, it might have been okay, and you might be okay too. But they're not a bad looking thing when you get them done. They said that Triceratops looked kind of nice. I don't know if I want to put it together now after putting this one together, or getting it. Besides, I have Legos to get. I'll put my money more towards them. Yeah, he'll probably sit in my bookcase or something. That's exactly what he's for. He's not really playable. So tell me what you think down below in the comments, and please like if you enjoyed this. See more. I am not going to be doing non-Lego products a lot. I am going to be doing other construction things other than Lego. Just see how they add up to Lego. See what the competition's got. There's some other things I'm going to be doing, like I will be doing Mega Blocks. I'm going to be doing like a little mini series. This is going to be long down the road, and I've got to make a lot more planning for it, but there'll be like a mini series where we just cover them and do stuff. I do like Mega Blocks. I still don't mix them with my Legos. They've come a long way, and that's kind of what we're going to be looking at, is how they've developed over the years. And I don't have big problems with them, but I have problems with what Lego actually did with them, and I'm not happy. I'm usually happy with Lego overall, but some of the things they did, I know they're trying to protect their business, but I don't know. I felt like by some of the things they've done to their competitors, and there's competitors, and then there's copycats, and that's a different story, and we're going to talk about that at some point too. But some of the things they've done with their competitors curbs creativity, and creativity is what this channel is about, and that's where I have problems with some of the things they've done. But yes, so we'll talk more about that another day. If you have any thoughts, you can leave them down below, but we'll be talking about that in much more detail later. So please subscribe if you haven't. If it's the first time to this channel, then welcome, and please do subscribe and check out more of my videos. And there's a bell down there for notifications, and a link to my channel's Facebook page and to its Twitter account too, where you can get notifications through them as well. And also keep updated on what's going on in the channel. You'll find out when new videos are out and whatever else news I have going on with the channel. So that's that, and I hope you guys have a great day, and remember, creativity is key.